Hello, and welcome to another top agent interview here at the DIG Agency. My name is JD, and today I have the unique pleasure of speaking with not just one agent, but actually a team, a unique sub-agency within the DIG Agency. We'll get into those details here in a moment. But I have Bryan Tatum, who was able to produce $17,000 worth of annualized premium in a single week. And we're going to get into the details on how exactly he's done that and has been successful here with our agency, as well as including Ryan here to talk a little bit more about his agents and his agency, what he offers personally. So that all being said, I want to welcome my two guests. Welcome, Bryan, and welcome, Bryan.
Awesome. Thanks,
Thanks
JD, for having us, man.
Yeah, definitely. This is going to be a fun one for us. So here's where I typically like to start, Bryan. And I know you told me to call you Tatum, but right now we're going with Bryan. So, but Bryan, if you would kind of give us your backstory, what was it that you were doing that prior to getting to Final Expense? Because I personally don't know any of your background or story. So just kind of give the audience some context to maybe what it was you're doing in the past, or maybe you're doing those things on the side, or kind of what your story is to arrive here at the DIG Agency.
Yeah, man. Thanks again. All right. So first off, I grew up in Charleston, South Carolina. And after college, I decided to get into the bar business. And I ended up opening 8 different restaurants, 6 in Charleston, South Carolina. 1 is St. John's, U.S. Virgin Islands. And the last one was in Sonoma, California. And I was in Sonoma, California, living the dream. Opened a Southern barbecue restaurant, music venue in the heart of wine country. And about 2 weeks after I opened this joint up, my entire world got flipped upside down. A beautiful woman walked into the bar. A year later, I was married, and I was living the bachelor life before that. So, things got shaken up a little bit. It was either she came and worked for me, or I go to a 9 to 5. At that time, I decided I was ready for a change myself, and I got introduced to a company that it's a captive agency that sells health insurance. Okay. So I got licensed when I was in California, and I packed up all of our stuff and I moved us back to Charleston, South Carolina, where I worked out of my house for about 6 months. And I thought I knew sales, with restaurants, but I didn't. And what I learned through that process was prospecting, putting your head down, being a student of the game, all that different stuff. And I became really good at it. I got pushed to Atlanta to be a leader. And that was about 5.5 years ago. I ran a big team in Atlanta. I was, a top producer and a top team leader with this company. And again, another season change happened to me. I had a kid, and I was working 18-hour days at this office when I really want to spend time with my child. So about 1.5 years ago, I stepped down as leadership. I just became a producer selling health insurance. And I was reached out to by a company called Southwestern. I still work with them. They are a leadership and sales coaching company. So for the last year and 3 months, I've been a sales and leadership coach. And that's been great. I get to work with, individuals, team leaders, top producers across the country, and I get to integrate their lives for 2 hours a month. So I get all the benefits, but it's not all consuming, right? As I've been going through that process, my residuals have gone down from insurance, and the coaching just kind of stayed level, and it didn't go up like I was used to. And I've always liked David Duford. I've always enjoyed your videos as well. And I spent some time thinking about it. I talked with my family about it. And we figured out that, with my insurance agency, that Final Expense was an excellent onboarding ramp to bring new agents in because of the cash flow aspect of it compared to the residual side of health insurance. So that was, a little bit longer than maybe it should have been, but I just want to hit all notes, make sure you understand where I came from. So sales and leadership coach, got back into insurance. I started with DIG Agency in October, and after being there for about 3 weeks, I met Ryan, and we hit it off just like that. And so I've been with Ryan, was it been November and December?
Yep, that's about right.
Perfect.
Yep.
That's quite an interesting story, Bryan, and you wouldn't believe this if I told you, but I literally, right before I got on this call, I literally got off with a new prospective agent that is considering joining our agency that's currently at a Medicare call center. And so maybe there's other folks that are out there that may have started that route like you did yourself and like this particular agent was asking me. For whatever reason, that seems to be one way that folks get roped into this world of insurance. Speak to us, so you kind of alluded to it a little bit there, but speak to us about the differences in the Medicare world versus the final expense world and those differences and what you've seen in your experience.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'd like to speak to whoever you just talking about, like right now. So what I'm really saying here is I didn't come from the Medicare world. I came from the captive agency under 65 health insurance world. Okay. And what that did was it built me residuals as if it was Medicare. Right. But the point is that is long-term income, right? The same as Medicare. The problem with the long-term income is it's hard to grow a team underneath that because somebody needs 6 months worth of income to be able to get to that point where they have some income coming in. So final expense is that onboarding ramp. And that is the reason why I love it so much. I mean, there's such an opportunity in this field, especially for people that were struggling with that. Because here's the cool thing. I still get my residuals from insurance. Now I'm throwing cash flow on top of it. And that week that I wrote over 17K was the busiest week I've ever had in health insurance. I did both, right? And that was just time management at a high level and really just being intentional with what I was doing. But the key that I'm trying to make here is you don't have to leave Medicare to do this. These things come together. I mean, it's synergy all the way around when you're talking about that. And that's what really like kicked in the door for me to come with the DIG Agency, because that's the message that you guys keep pushing out.
Yeah, perfect. And thank you for clarifying. Yeah, but you know, the Medicare as well as the under 65, or as most people refer to as the ACA world, right? Just like you mentioned, a lot of that is like residually based income, not very great income within the first year. And conversely, final expense pays you great in the first year, but not so well in the residual world, right? So they kind of go together like peanut butter and jelly, like socks and shoes, or whatever analogy you like to use there. And so that's kind of the conversation I was having as well, was start with the final expense, right? And the reason for that is because the commissions are so much better in your first year that you can start making money now. Like, as an example, if you're paying for your own leads, and these are just kind of general numbers, most people are spending $100 to $200 to acquire a new client, right? Where the average final expense policy, $700 to $1,000, right? So you can clearly have the potential to not only be able to continue paying for your lead spends moving forward, but also be able to pay yourself an income during that process, right? During that initial first year. The other benefit would be the fact that you're learning the sales process, you're mastering the sales process, kind of like you talked about. The way that I describe it to folks that are new to insurance or new to final expense, etc., is that learning final expense, 80% of it is learning the sales process. Only maybe about 20% of it is the product, the underwriting. Like, it's pretty straightforward, right? It's like you die, your beneficiary gets a check for this amount. Like, whereas health insurance, it's a complicated animal. Like, you got all the different carriers, they vary by county. You got deductibles and out of pockets and prescription tiers. Like, it's a difficult thing, right? Where you're learning the health product, 80% of that is going to be the product, and only 20% is the sales process. Because, by the way, a lot of these people are paying like $20 a month or even $0 a month for their plan. So how hard is it to sell something that's free? So the benefit, what I'm getting to, is learning this process from final expense, getting your teeth cut, learning and mastering the sales process will help you transition to Medicare or health insurance to close more deals. And then last, was more specific probably to Medicare than it is to under the 65, but probably the same could be true for both, is that while you're selling final expense, you're actually building up a book of business that you can then turn around and cross-sell those folks later down the road, essentially building your own book of free leads that you can either sell to Medicare if you're doing Medicare over 65, or I have a lot of final expense agents that are actually, 45 to, 64 that are in that range that would qualify for that under 65 health insurance product, right? And so there's multiple benefits to doing it that route. So thank you for sharing that part of the story. I wanted to ask Ryan, Tell us how this kind of circumstance, how did you guys meet and how did you rein him in? And what did that initial process look like to helping Bryan get started?
Yeah, so essentially, as the beautiful communication abilities that we have with school, people see a lot of posts and so forth, as far as sales and just engagement in general. And I think Bryan kind of caught that I was on school quite a bit, and essentially he kind of reached out, and well, a small conversation led to a pretty good connection. I could tell that, Bryan clearly has the sales ability, um, and that's a large part of it, and the drive, right? I just basically explained to him that, hey, look, man, we're not here necessarily to sell. We touch as many people as possible to really have a conversation and help them find the right policy for them. And so through that conversation, we again clicked it pretty good. Um, and it just led to a easy call from there to join and kind of link arms and develop an agency from here. So
Perfect. And then as far as that onboarding process, how did you take him from where he was when he showed up to you to getting him up to that $17,000 AP week? Like, what did that process look like?
yeah, the majority of it is work ethic. I will say there's one of the advantages to getting involved with me, Bryan, whoever it may be, within my team is the one-on-one. So we run a daily Zoom so that way we can spend all day with you, working through sales, working through what could be said, should be said, and so forth. And so basically, I was lucky enough with Bryan, especially that he already knew the CRM that we used. So I was able to just kind of tell him, hey, look, let's link everything together. Start it up and we'll link everything together, and was able to start getting leads for him right away. So, but as far as really developing the sales process, that comes a lot with our daily Zoom where I sit with agents or other team members, sit with agents and um, essentially walk people through the sale. These headsets make a huge difference. I can literally walk somebody. I could teach somebody how to sell instead of. I know there's a lot of other agencies out there um, who will actually sell for their agents. And the problem with that is if someone's doing the selling for you, it's hard to actually learn how to sell. Whereas what I do through a headset is I can hear what they're saying and say, hey, look, slow down, say this instead of that, and so forth. So that honestly, the onboarding process is babysitting or hand holding. Obviously, with Bryan, there was a lot less of that, but like I said, it's a lot of sitting with you all day long. So
Wow. So are you saying that you actually listen in live to your agents while they make calls during when they get started?
yep. I mean, we have the ability to share sound and stuff. Most of the time, it's just me listening to what the agent is saying. You can tell what's being said on the other side if you've done it long enough. So you could tell how the client's reacting just by the agent's reactions. If there's major problems, of course, we can share sound and really hone in on what's being said, from the client side. But yeah, no, we sit. I literally. I've got an agent that I worked with that I sat all day and listened to every single one of his calls and just critiqued everything until we got him to a high performer. So,
Gotcha. All right. And circling back over to you, Tatum, I'm going to call you Tatum now. But circling back over to you, talk to us about that initial period of getting started. How much of what your previous experience played into your success, and what did that initial training period and everything look like for you to get started?
Yeah, so when I first started, I was actually on David Heath's team. And when I was with David Heath, he's all face to face. And I just worked, 6+ years on virtual, teaching agents how to sell virtually, overcome objections, all that different stuff. So it just didn't make a lot of sense. And that's why Ryan and I connected so strongly. I mean, the CRM he's talking about, it was nuts because it's an off of the wall CRM, but it's a system that we utilize. So the agent's point of view coming into Ryan's situation is really this. He First thing he sent me was a Zoom link. He's like, come join us, just see what we're doing. Right. So all of a sudden I'm in a Zoom room with not just Ryan, but some other top producers within the DIG agency. And these guys are unmuting themselves. Let me listen to their entire conversation with the proposed customer. I'm listening to them overcome objections. I'm listening to them close those deals, right? And that was awesome because you don't really get that, especially like face to face. That's a benefit of working virtual is you can have that kind of training where you get to hear the whole thing all the way across, right? The next part of that is Ryan, he's pretty humble, right? But he is excellent at a few different points. Number one, leads. I know with any business, that's the lifeline of what we do. So I told Ryan, I was like, I need a minimum of 20 leads per day for this to work for me. I have some high goals. We got to hit this. And he made it happen like that. And not only did it make it happen, he continually is working to make it better, which is really cool, right? So that's, having a system like that with leads coming in is huge. But he's also teaching on approach. When you get that lead on the phone, what are you saying? How do you say that? How does that come out? I always like to go by who, what, and why. Who is the person I'm talking to? I want to get to know who this person is, what they're specifically looking for, and most importantly, why. Why are we on the phone, right? And then connecting that to the presentation. Because again, on that approach as well, I've already done the probing that Ryan's taught me how to do. I've already figured out which plans are going to work well for them. I've already figured out a couple different carriers I'm going to talk to them about. And getting into that presentation and saying the right things. I mean, one thing that Ryan said to me, he's like, listen, you've done it this way, but I know with my experience it works doing it this way. So having that kind of tutelage and guidance is huge. Okay. So another aspect of it is closing for a yes or a no. I think anybody who's ever worked these leads before knows what a maybe means, right? Now, we always have those customers that are truly what we call them in the coaching world detectives, where they need to actually do their research and think about it. But that's like 1 out of 50, right? So understanding that if you don't get a yes on the phone right then, it's probably, or if they get a maybe, it's probably a no. So understanding the follow-up process behind that, how to overcome those objections. But overcoming objections in this business is way different than other sales. And what I mean is it's a very soft approach. We're here to help these people in any way possible. And if we don't connect their need and why to the product, then it just doesn't work. And Ryan's really helped me see that and understanding that like there's no reason to push anybody into anything because we don't want chargebacks. Yeah, they'll come, but understanding how to connect their need to what the product is and making them feel that is how we get that long-term retention. And again, I'm so new at this. Ryan and I were talking about it earlier. He's like, "Yep, we don't know what your retention is yet," and he's 100% right, right? And that's what we were talking about working on street cred. That's one thing that Ford says all the time. And then the last aspect that I really work on too is rounding it off after the objections and close that deal. Just building that good relationship, solidifying the back end of that sale, and then hopefully getting some referrals out of that.
Perfect, perfect. Well, you hit on a number of different things that I wanted to dive into a little bit deeper. The first one would be choosing between telesales and face-to-face. Now, you've got your own personal reasons why you transitioned from face-to-face over to telesales. But I get that question literally every single day, and I've kind of got my own answer. But I'm interested to hear now that you've seen both sides of the fence. What would you tell somebody who's not really sure which direction to go? What would be maybe the pros and cons of going one direction or the other?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the biggest pro is my 3.5-year-old's upstairs right now. I can hear him. Like that's my heart. You know what I'm saying? So being able to produce at a high level and work and then take a break when somebody, hangs up on me and just go kiss my son and come back downstairs and get back to work, that's the biggest benefit to me. I can't do that if I'm working with windshield time every day, right? So it keeps me with my family. That's huge to me. Secondly, I'm just a weird case because I've done telesales for a while, but I think one key thing is how is your communication on the phone? If you know that you're not good on the phone, doing telesales is tough. We hear tonality on the phone. I can understand if somebody wants to talk to me or if I have to break them down and actually get them to understand why they want to talk to me. If you can't do that, you're going to have a hard time. If you're just reading a script and you're nervous about it and you're not actually having a conversation, telesales is extremely difficult. That's why a lot of people fail out of it. Okay. On the other end, the reason why I wanted to do face to face is because I just had never done it before. And, I've seen the aspects, the ability that you can do face to face, and that's really good. So I would say, I don't know if I answered your question, JD, but I would say if you feel like you're really good on the phones, you want to stay at home and spend time with your family and produce at high level, telesales is the way to go. But you have to have the system, the team, the community around you to make that work. Because if I didn't have these guys on Zoom every day, I wouldn't be here. There's no way possible. I swear, when I have a tough day, I can unmute and I feel like I'm in an office with these guys. They would literally take a minute and calm me down and then put me back on pace, and then we're all dialing again. Right. So it's having that aspect to it too. So if you don't have that in telesales, it can be a lonely world out here for sure. And that's the good thing about the DIG Agenecy is we got that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, those are really good points there. And the way that I kind of like to address that question is the answer is unfortunately it just depends. Which one's going to be best for me? Which one can I make more money? It's well, again, it just depends. And I alluded to similarly, it's well, let's say, for an example, you guys both said, hey, we want to start a band. But I don't know, should I play the drums or should I play the guitar? I have no idea. Which one do you have more of a passion for? Which one do you have naturally more skilled or talented towards? I can never answer that person for another, or answer that question for another person, in other words. So really your ability to be successful, whether that is face-to-face or telesales, is you being able to identify which one is a better fit for you, right? Don't go down the grass is greener syndrome and think oh man, I'm a face-to-face agent. I'm driving around and got all this windshield time. I could just be in front of people all day if I was a telesales agent. Well, the reality of it is you're going to be making a lot of dials and listening to the phone ring and replacing the windshield time with phone ring time, or vice versa, right? Maybe you're sitting in the office and you're driving yourself crazy. I can't sit here and just be in one spot by myself. Obviously the situation that Ryan has built there, being able to have that team available to you at all times, most certainly alleviates that. Probably really the number one issue I would think in doing telesales is just being solo, like a man on your own island. Because I can tell you, riding around in the car by yourself, that can get lonely too. And David Heath was actually my personal coach as well, and I can tell you that I would call David probably, if not on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, and not just because I needed help closing a deal. It could be a situation where maybe I'm having a bad day, and like you mentioned, I need somebody to kind of pick me up and dust me off, or something I can just vent to. Man, you wouldn't believe what this idiot just said to me. That happens, right? That's what the sales world involves. Or maybe you're having a fantastic day and you want somebody to high five you and pat you on the back. And we talk to our spouses or loved ones or otherwise, but nobody can kind of really quite understand the real victory or the real defeat that you feel if they hadn't been in the trenches themselves, right? And so having somebody in your corner that has that similar experience is to me invaluable, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Perfect. So
yeah, you hit on a point. I want to hammer this down real quick because it's a really good point. We hadn't hit it. Telesales or face to face. We all walk through the fire on a daily basis. There's a lot of resistance, right? With either way you go, there's a ton of resistance. Which one can you take? Which one are you more comfortable? Which one can you make, your business? Which one can you spend 12 hours a day in? And when you answer that question, I think that's your answer.
Yes, I think that that's a very good way of looking at it. Another thing you brought up there, Tatum, was a solid point, and this is whether you're working with Ryan or any one of our other coaches on our staff. Not that Ryan's on our staff. We'll get into that in a moment. But being coachable, that's one of the key traits that we find that leads agents to be successful. I personally feel the number one thing that leads to success, the number one correlator between people that are successful in this business and that are not, is time on task, which is exactly what you just mentioned there. How much can you tolerate and get beat up and yet still be Rocky Balboa and keep getting up and getting up and getting up and going back out there, right? And so time on task, extremely important. But if there's any more of a personal type of trait or a quality, I guess you can say, I would say being coachable is probably one of the top ones. If maybe being driven might be number one, right? The need for achievement, but just being coachable and being able to take criticism and actually utilize that from somebody with more experience from you, and being able to adjust what you're doing. Because a lot of people will raise their hand, oh yeah, I'm coachable, but it's like, okay, well, coachable means that you're going to be critiqued, and whatever you were doing before, you're not going to do that anymore. Like that's easier said than done. So tell me about your thoughts on being coachable and how important that is in the program.
Yeah, motivation is everything. I'm coming from another Southwest Westernism. It's a coaching thing, right? So it's all about your why. It's all about your goals. It's all about, at the end of the day, the amount that you can go through is directly tied to the clarity of your vision. Okay. So if you have a strong vision, then you can get through all that. You're going to push every day to get through it. If you don't, and you're just not really there, and you're not sure what you want to do, you're going to push papers. And pushing papers in this business is a huge waste of time. What you need to do is what we call income producing activities. That's getting on the phone and dialing. That's knocking on those doors. And when you start tracking those at a high level, you start realizing how much that can actually produce for you. And then you start freeing up time. So when you talk about coachability and stuff of that sort, it's funny, man. I am a true student of the game. I have a gratitude journal right here that I write in every single day. My coach leader, Jenny, actually gave this to me. Thank you, Jenny. I have servant selling. I have 10x is easier than 2x. I'm just a true student of the game. I'm always like engulfing myself in whatever I can because this business is my business. So at the end of the day, coachability is everything. If you're not into this 100%, guess what? It's not going to work like everything else that you try to do in your life that you weren't in 100%.
Gotcha. So the next thing that I wanted to cover here with you was, let's talk about what an average day would look like for a telesales agent. And then in addition to that, how did you go from an average day to the $17,000 a week? And kind of give us a rundown of what those days or weeks look like for you.
Yeah. So an average day typically isn't going to be this, but it was open enrollment for health insurance, right? So I'm trying to do two jobs at one time. So I would typically get at my desk at 7 a.m. and I would just like really visualize my day through my calendar, knowing that I have time blocked for health insurance, I have time blocked for final expense. And to tell the truth, JD, if I tried to intermingle that, I wouldn't have been nearly as efficient. So actually blocking off time for each was great. I would typically I would get on the phones right around 11 Eastern because I was doing health insurance until 11, right? And from 11 until 5, 6, sometimes 7 o'clock at night, I would just dial. I would work the leads that would come in, and I would work the appointments that would book themselves. And then I would just continue to dial and dial and dial. And here's another cool thing: if you have a good system for a lot of leads, somebody hangs up with you, somebody no shows. Then in my head, I'm like, man, how many more dials can I make? Right. And trying to hit dial goals has really gotten me, to the point where it just keeps driving me along with everybody else. We got other people on our team. They post, how many dials they did that day. Right. And I think just that kind of camaraderie, like push. There's been multiple times I would have quit way before, but because somebody else posted something else, guess what I'm doing? I'm getting back on the phones. Right. So I think essentially that was the key.
Gotcha. I like that. Let's look at this, and Ryan, feel free to jump in on this one as well. Is there any secret sauce or tools, resources, a specific lead, or anything that you would attribute to your success? That could be either from you, Bryan, or if you want to pass it over to Ryan, if there's something specific that Heath provided.
Go ahead, right guy. Let's hear it.
Yeah, so I don't think that there's any one specific thing, right? When it comes to, so I always anything I always, whenever it comes to training, I always explain that there are specific pieces to every single sale. And if you don't have those pieces in place, if you don't cover them all in some fashion or another, your way, my way, the highway, doesn't matter. If you don't cover them all in one certain way, you're not going to get the sale. So same way with getting to 17,000 in a week. If you don't have all the specific pieces in place, you're not going to get to that point, right? So there's no special lead. I will say that a lead is a lead is a lead. However, there are better leads than others. When it comes to our leads, they're very straightforward and specific. So, but there's still enough obscurity there to allow us to actually be able to sell some of the people who would probably never respond to something if it just said buy life insurance, right? Um, as Bryan said, he's worked a lot of hours, and sometimes he's worked very few. I mean, but always having that drive is huge. As Bryan again mentioned, that the camaraderie within the Zoom, if he didn't have that all the time, there's many days he probably would have given up early. That's part of the reason why I honestly, although I may have the title as leader of some in some fashion, I mean, I needed to help just as much as anybody else. That's why I started finding people, started letting people into the Zoom, is because I wanted a team to help drive me and keep me going. So again, if you don't have all those, same way with the pieces to the sale, if you don't have all those together, uh, the there's going to be a hole in the ship, and it's going to not float as well, at least. So that would be my answer. So
Anything to
I
add?
can answer on the leads too, if you like.
Yeah.
Okay. So leads are really good when we're selling them. They're really bad on days that we don't sell them. And poor Ryan has to take these texts and these phone calls. Hey, man, what'd you do to our leads? Right? The point that I'm trying to make is consistency is everything. And have somebody like Ryan that I can just joke with and have fun with makes it through the tough times. But you're not going to sell every single day. And then you'll have a day where you'll sell 5 apps. It's consistency. That's why I was like, I need 20 leads a day or more. And as long as I have that consistency, then it all works itself out.
Understood. Perfect. So curious now, Bryan, moving forward, what do things look like for you? What are your plans? Are you potentially going to, recruit your own agents, or what is kind of your future looking like for yourself in final expense or otherwise?
Yeah, so like I said before, I'm still working on that street cred, right? I am actively recruiting agents for my health insurance agency. The idea is to work with Ryan all the way through to where we can build that onboarding ramp and get people to kind of coexist within, but come in through final expense so they can make those paychecks. And with the systems and the leads and the camaraderie and everything else motivating us, it's just such a great system that he's built here that makes that possible. I was talking to Ryan before today, and I said, I was like, hey man, I'm going to help you with trainings. I'm going to help you with helping figure out systems and stuff of that sort. But I don't really want to get into leadership at least for 6 months at the minimum. I really just want to feel this for what it is. And he made a good point too when he said, hey, you haven't had really many chargebacks. You don't really understand everything about the business yet. And he nailed it, right? 100% with that, because he's right. He has that experience. There's other people on our team that has that experience that I would prefer to defer to. I would like to just continue to build both of my books all the way up And then, I think eventually Ryan and I will keep crushing together, man.
Fantastic, fantastic. And what about yourself, Ryan? Plans for yourself or your agency? We're obviously talking right here at the time of recording this, right here at the beginning of 2024. So, looking at what is your outlook for this year and beyond?
Yeah, I would say I definitely lucked out, getting a hold of Bryan, and the other teammates that we have. Like it's that type of attitude that will continue to grow our agency uh, well, probably further than what I would expect. We absolutely all have the goal of expanding the team as much as we can handle. Because the biggest goal is to make sure that we can have that one-on-one, just like I did with Bryan, like I did with Matt, like I've done with Luke, like just everybody in the group, um, John, Sandy, all of them. Spending that time, we want to be able to spend that time with all the agents, so that way hopefully nobody in our agency fails, right? The history is only what is it, 92% of agents fail. Hopefully ours is 0%, and no matter where they're at, as far as their ultimate goals, they hit that, whether it's 17,000 or 2,000 a week, right? So the ultimate goal is just to find as many like-minded agents to continue to build the agency. The sky's the limit, but I'm a guy who likes to take things as they come rather than forcing them. So
Understood. Yeah, very good answer. All right, gentlemen. Well, let's say that somebody is watching this, they like what they hear. They're interested in joining the David DeFord Insurance Group, or the DIG Agency, as we now call it, but they want to work specifically with you, Ryan. What would you recommend that they do?
yeah, so they can easily reach out to me through email. Seems to be the simplest form to start the conversation. Essentially, whether you've been in the business or you haven't, we're open to anybody, but we are pretty picky and choosy. We want to make sure we get the right people, and it's got to be the right time. So they can all reach out to me through my email. That's R Valet, V as in Victor, ALLETT @gmail.com. Keep it real simple. Just get a hold of me, introduce yourself, and tell me a little bit about yourself, and we can kind of move on from there, whether it be a call or whatever it may be.
Perfect. And I will work with our YouTube team to get that information placed into the description below. So in case you didn't catch all that, you can obviously just rewind it and get it down, right? That's pretty simple. But otherwise, we'll have it down in the description in case you want to grab it from there. So that being said, what did we miss? Did we miss anything today, Bryan? Anything else you want to share with our folks here?
Yeah, well, I'd like to just end this with a little gratitude, maybe a message to people as well. Ryan, I've worked with a lot of leaders, right? Whether I've coached them, they've been under me, they've been on top of me, whatever it is. But Ryan has a heart for the agents, right? And for me, that was the biggest draw to me, because a lot of leaders out there, they're thinking about one thing, is themselves. Ryan's very humble. He is an over communicator, which I love. He's never going to hold anything back on you. He's going to tell you like it is and make sure that you're doing the right things. And man, I'm just grateful to be on your team. It's been an awesome experience so far, and I'm looking forward to how far we can push this puppy.
Excellent. Yeah, that was very wonderful. And Ryan, any final closing thoughts we missed?
I'll have to go with the gratitude also. I will say that Bryan's been a key position within our team and I see far more growing in the future from here, and everything that we can bring together. Super excited. I think anybody who can jump in while the iron's hot, I think will make a huge difference. Again, will help everybody. And again, Bryan, appreciate everything that you bring to the table, man.
Awesome.
Well, thank you guys once again for your time today. And if you guys are interested in learning more about the DeFord Insurance Group or the DIG Agency, head over to daviddufort.com or check the description down below. We've got all the links there. Let's get on a call, have a conversation, talk about your situation, get your questions answered to see if we're the right fit for you or not. And again, thank you for your time, and I look forward to you guys on the next Top Producer Interview Show. And thank you again to Bryan and Ryan for being here this afternoon.